So this is the second Learning Lounge, and it's the second in a series of 5 different Learning Lounges that is part of our Care Leaders Bootcamp. So today we're going to be focused on career development. Last week we looked at recruitment, and then forthcoming topics include health and well-being, good communication, and building a positive working environment. But today is all about career development, and the intention is just to give you some useful tips of how you can support your teams, your staff, or introduce ideas for career development in your organizations. Just to explain a little bit about me, my name is Mark Story. I'm the Head of Learning Innovation at FutureU, but my background is in organizational development and learning and development. So I spent many years talking to dozens of care sector organizations, but also hundreds of other organizations looking at their learning and development, their career development practices, and making sure that they are as effective as possible in supporting and managing their people. So that's me, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some of the tips that I've picked up along the way, and also building on the excellent resources that Alex has put out there as part of the Care Leaders Bootcamp that we'll talk at the end about how you can access and use. So the things that we're going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at, first of all, Daniela, you'll remember this from last time, I want to talk about the 3 principles of self-development. So if you're undertaking any kind of development, and this is development for yourselves, then there's 3 important principles that I think underpin making sure that we're effective learners. Then we're going to come on to career development, and I'll be asking you a question about why it's important. So why is this important? Why should we pay attention to it? I want to address the question of, well, if we're supporting people's career development, aren't we just preparing people to leave our organizations if we haven't got a higher level role for them or job for them? Then yeah, what's the benefit to us? Then get into the nitty-gritty, which is about keeping it simple. This does not have to be a complicated thing. We can make sure that we keep it simple, that we use existing structures for talking to staff, and use some additional questions to help support their career development. I want to talk specifically about mentoring. I think mentoring opens up a whole range of opportunities, not just for the people who are going to be mentors, but also the benefit that is received by the people that are being mentored, so the mentees. I want to encourage you to think flexibly about career development. So it doesn't just have to be people moving up. It can be people moving sort of across the organization as much as people moving into higher management positions. But management is not the only career development route. So we'll explore that. And then at the end, we'll summarize, talk about some key takeaways, and I'll point you to some additional resources for you as well. So first thing that I want to share, and I'm going to be talking about this in every one of these sessions, is the 3 principles of self-development. So I really want you to internalize this, that if you're doing any learning, and if your staff are doing any learning, there are 3 really important things to think about. The first one is that self-awareness is the key to self-development. So being honest with yourself about how your organization does something, or how you do something, what you find easy, what you find difficult, is going to point you in the direction of what you need to improve on. So being self-aware is the key to self-development. The second principle is that real life gives us all the opportunities we need to practice skills, behaviors, or to demonstrate knowledge that we need. So while it's useful to come on sessions like this and to pick up some knowledge, pick up some tips, actually real life is the best classroom. That's the best place that you're going to do the learning. So have the conversations about career development in your organization, get some people thinking about their career development, and then reflect on how that's going. Is that working for you? Is that of benefit? What do you need to change and improve in order to get the most out of it? So real life is always the best classroom. And the third thing is we need somebody to help us unpack the lessons that life gives us. So if we're introducing a simple career development structure in our organization, it's really useful to get some feedback from other people on how that's being perceived. We'll have one view, but the more views that we can get, the more we build our self-awareness and the more we can focus on what we need to develop. So 3 principles for self-development. I hope you'll take those away and ingest those, internalize those on each of these sessions. So now into the nitty-gritty of career development. Now, I may have given you some answers here, but I want this to be an open session, and I want to ask you the question, why is career development important, do you think? So please feel free to come off mute or to put your answers in the chat. But what do you think? Why is career development important in your organization? Daniela, you're on mute, so you might need to come off mute. There'll be a little microphone button. There we go.
Yeah. So for me, it's important because I feel that I am more confident doing the job, and that gives me a very good attitude. And we know in these days there are different culture, and sometimes we don't know how to manage. To we know that we are trying to be the best for the service users, but we don't know, most of the time we don't know how to manage to take the positive feedback from everyone, because working in the team is a kind of difficult, especially if you are new in this an organization. And unfortunately, when you are going into work, you know that you are on shift, but you don't know nothing about colleagues, you don't know nothing about staff management, you don't know nothing about service users, so you have to guess. So doing a lot of training like that give me more confidence and knowledge, and then this why I think is my why to be more confident doing working in care industry.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Daniela. Thank you. And yeah, confidence is a huge one. So we can think of lots of examples where we feel confident, we feel good about ourselves. We tend to perform well. We tend to be the best version of ourselves. If we're nervous or we're not sure of ourselves, then sometimes we can be a little hesitant. We might not ask the questions that we want to ask. But if we're being developed, we can improve our confidence, and that can improve the way that we're delivering care, interacting with colleagues, whatever it might be. I've got some suggestions here of why I think career development is important for people. So I think people need to have a sense that they're making progress in a thing, that they're advancing and developing. If you feel like you're staying still, then it can be quite a demotivating experience. But if you feel like you're improving or getting better, actually it can motivate you to improve and get better even more. And I've put something called retention horizons there. So if you're being developed or developing yourself, if you feel like you've got a sense of career development and you look forward into the future, 6 months or 12 months, and you can see yourself doing something bigger or different, more specialist in your role, then that's a motivating thing. If you look forward 6 months and 12 months and just see the same that you're doing today, then that can feel a little bit like Groundhog Day, as if you're just treading water. So again, when you're thinking about your future, or when people are thinking about their future, they need to be thinking about something that is changing and growing about themselves. Career development can also give you an opportunity to identify your rising stars. So the people that are really good in your organization, and you can get more out of them. by engaging them in career development conversations. There's lots of things that need to be done in care organisations, and often team leaders or deputy managers or managers can be a bottleneck. They're so busy that they don't get to do everything. So spreading responsibility by developing other people and giving them more responsibility can be a way of getting more things done. As a result of that, you can grow an organisation. So an example might be developing a specialist understanding in dementia, or in Parkinson's disease, or in a range of different conditions or care needs that might enable you to bring in additional service users or residents that you might not have been able to bring in before. So it will allow you to benefit as an organisation. And if you can tell the story, going back to the recruitment session from last week, if you can tell the story of how you develop your staff and how you develop their careers, it can help you attract people into your organisation who want to be developed and want to advance. So there's lots of really positive things, but what I often hear, and particularly from care organisations, is that if they invest in people and they start growing them in their careers, they haven't got space, they haven't got management opportunities for them. So won't those people just leave? And the answer is they may well leave. But the only thing worse than training your staff and having them leave is not training them at all and having them stay. So if you don't train your staff, which is the alternative, then you'll have demotivated, you'll have insecure, unconfident staff working in your organisation. And that's not a place that anybody wants to be in. So you want to have an organisation that is full of people with optimism, full of people with a positive view of the future, full of people trying to improve the way that they do things. And as a result, you'll be a better organisation for it, even if people leave as a result, because you'll then be attracting talent in. I want to talk a little bit about the structures that you might use to have career development conversations with your staff. And I would say, don't complicate this. Use what existing structures you've got. So you may have a supervision or appraisal structure that might happen monthly or quarterly or every 6 months or every year. Use that. And I wouldn't say have a career development conversation every month, but maybe twice a year or once a year, you set some time aside in one of those sessions and you ask some specific questions about career development. Alex has got some really great resources, and we'll talk about those at the end, of questions that you might ask in those sessions, just to identify what people's career aspirations are. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You can ask some very straightforward questions, 2 or 3 or 4 questions, and depending on the answers, you can agree with somebody some very simple steps that they can take in order to start supporting their career development. So over the next 6 months or over the next 12 months, set some clear goals for somebody, and then they will have a sense of career development, because this is a long-term thing, not a short-term thing. It's important to recognize when you're having those conversations that there are 3 types of learning and development that need to be catered for when you're talking to staff. So when you're having a career development conversation, a career development opportunity is not doing mandatory health and safety training or moving and handling training. They're really must-have stuff. So if you're agreeing with somebody that they need to do their moving and handling refresher or their infection control refresher, that is not career development, and that is not necessarily motivating development for them. That is compliance development. So they need to do that to be compliant for their jobs. So make sure that you're aware of that and that you're organizing that quickly and effectively. Now, Future You obviously is a really good platform for doing all of those things. and it can be done easily and effectively through online learning, or if you have trainers coming in, or whatever it might be. But that is really just administering that and making sure that people maintain their compliance. The second kind of conversation that you might have about learning and development is how somebody might improve their job performance. So they're compliant, they've got their moving and handling, infection control, and so on. But you might notice, and taking your point, Daniela, that actually there's a whole bunch of cultures in this organization, and this particular person could really benefit from understanding more about those cultures. So there might be some other training that is required. It's not compliance training, it's training that will improve the job performance, but it's still not career development. So that is improving somebody's ability to do their job. When we're talking about career development, we're talking about nice to have development opportunities. So these might be qualifications or apprenticeships. It might be management or team leader development or opportunities. So it might be sending somebody on these sessions, for example. It might be encouraging somebody to develop a specialism. So getting them to go off and learn more about infection control or safeguarding or freedom to speak up or whatever the issue might be. Or it might be getting them involved in non-core tasks. So I don't know, there might be a range of physical activities that go on in your organization. I've just come back from the CARE show, and there are organizations that do sit-down dancing, and it looked like real fun, what was going on there. And I'm sure that in your organizations, there's similar types of things. So giving somebody the opportunity to learn something like that and being able to then deploy it in the organization would be a really lovely career development piece of learning for them. So the point here is to recognize that if you're talking about learning and development, it is not just one thing. There's three things going on: compliance, improving their job performance, and then improving their career prospects. Now, one really useful career development structure is mentoring. So this might be when you're talking to somebody who aspires to be a manager or a team leader, or somebody that aspires to be a dementia specialist, or aspires to be administering medication or managing activities, whatever it might be. There may well be somebody in your organization that is already really good at those things or doing that role already. So it's a great idea to match those people up and to set some time aside, and it only needs to be a couple of hours a month or something like that, where they might get together and the mentor gives some advice and guidance to the mentee about what they need to do, what they need to learn, how they need to be in order to get to where they are. So if you introduce a mentoring program in your organization, you can start small and keep it really simple. It doesn't have to cost anything other than maybe a couple of hours a month. So match your mentors and mentees on goals and skill sets. So if a person wants to learn to be a manager, then maybe get them to shadow the manager for, I don't know, a couple of hours, or get them to attend a meeting with that manager, and have some kind of conversation with what it is that that manager is doing, what they're thinking as they're going through that meeting. So set up some clear objectives. This is going to be like an hour a week or 2 hours a month. And the objective here is to learn about how you communicate to a group of people, or how you present information to a large group, or how you show people round the home when they're looking to place a relative in your home. Using mentoring as a pathway to management is a really great way of using mentoring. So if you have got a team leader or you've got a deputy manager, then getting somebody to connect with them and just learn about what their experiences are, what their life lessons are, what real life has taught them, would be of real benefit, and perhaps, dare I say, of more benefit than a book or a training course initially. But keep it low pressure. So keep it relaxed. Don't try and over process it. Just try and keep it relaxed and build the relationship within that mentoring program. Okay, the importance of thinking flexibly about career development. So often we think, well, if somebody's going to be encouraged to think about career development, we're going to need to find opportunities for them, new job roles for them, in order to facilitate that. And that's not the case at all. So holidays or absence cover is a great opportunity to get people to step up into roles and learn those roles that they haven't done before. So it could be that when a deputy manager is on holiday, through the mentoring program, they mentor somebody to be able to cover for them when they're on holiday. Or if there are projects or improvement initiatives, so you want to improve your residents' family group, for example, or you want to improve the way that you show people around, or you want to improve the reception area, or you want to improve handover meetings, then giving people the projects to look at how we do it at the moment, come up with some ideas of how we can improve and implement those improvements is a great way of giving people a sense of what it feels like to be a manager or a deputy manager. You might give people responsibility for staff training and onboarding new staff, or if there are inspections, get people involved in inspections that can really broaden people's view of what's important in a care organisation. Supervisions, so it may be that you can encourage people to carry out supervisions with others, or you may give people responsibility for looking at staff well-being or team culture, or some health and safety initiatives, or they might be safeguarding leads. There's a whole range of different ways in which you can encourage career development that doesn't have to mean giving people new jobs and finding new job roles for them. So this can be an ongoing thing over the course of a year or a couple of years. And then when an opportunity does arise, somebody will have been prepared for that role or would have demonstrated their ability in that role as a result of doing these things, and can jump in and actually improve their career. And it doesn't always have to be upwards either. So people management, if you're managing people, is not for everyone. I think if you're going to manage people, you really need to want to manage people. Often we see people management as the only career development route for us, but it is not the only route. So it's great to get exposure to higher levels of responsibility. And it may be around running team meetings or implementing a change or getting them involved in recruitment or something like that, to give them a taste of what management feels like and looks like, because it's difficult and it can be challenging. And if you're not into it, then it's probably not for you. But there are lots of other opportunities. So you can develop specialisms, or you might find that there are particular residents with particular needs that can ignite a passion. So an example I've put there is about dementia, but it might be activities, it might be introducing arts and crafts, or it could be a whole range of different things that you might be able to bring in that isn't being done at the moment, and develop that specialism. There are lots of resources available, and through the Workforce Development Fund, through Skills for Care, a lot of this training that people might receive to become specialists might be funded. So it's worth exploring what opportunities there are to increase people's skills beyond what they need to do their job, and how you might be able to get support for that. And by doing that, you are going to help raise overall standards. So, with 3 minutes to go, I want to come on to the summary and the 4 takeaways from this session. So by implementing these simple things and improving your career development practices, we believe that care homes can build a dedicated and skilled workforce that will continue to provide the highest quality care for your residents. So first of all, recognizing that progress is motivating for people. So if everybody's got the chance to talk about their career development, everybody's got the chance to think about what their future horizon might look like, it will be a motivating experience for people. The second thing is keep it simple. So use your existing structures of appraisal and supervision, add some simple questions to it, keep the objectives simple, keep the plans simple, don't make this complicated. The third thing is mentoring, the power of mentoring. It's a double-edged sword in that the mentor gets a huge amount of benefit from it by having to articulate and describe their knowledge and skills and support somebody else. And the mentee gets a huge amount from it by receiving the wisdom and the advice from the mentor. So a really simple, informal mentoring scheme is a really great career development opportunity. And finally, think flexibly. This is not just about people management. This might be about developing other services within your care organization. It might be about developing specialisms, and it may be fundable training that you can access on somebody's behalf. And you can then improve your overall quality of service as a result of developing that expertise. As always, there is a whole bunch of really great resources that Alex has put together. So she's put a link in the chat as well. If you want to scan that QR code, there are some really great questions that you can ask around career development and making sure that you really get the most out of your appraisals and supervision. So I definitely encourage you to download those resources. And it leaves me just with a couple of things. First of all, to access your CPD certificate for this session, then you can scan that QR code and follow the link that Alex has posted in the chat. Otherwise, are there any questions?